All right, good morning, everybody. So 5 principles to success in the age of Industry 4.0, digital transformation. And I know that's been a huge topic this week, and it's what I'm going to be talking about today. I will say not all transformation is good. I was looking at those espresso cupcakes yesterday, and I think I underwent a little bit more transformation than I meant to this week. But I think on the digital side, we can say it's mostly a positive thing. So first point is make use of your time today. And I don't mean here at the Lux Summit, although that would be a good thing to do as well. The key thing being the future is coming really fast. And if you don't move quickly, you're going to be behind. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but it really is true, especially at the exponential rate of progress that's happening. And I'll talk more about that as we move through here. So as you can see, where we're going, you don't need roads, right? It's the digital future. And if you don't get on board, and this is not just true for us at Anheuser-Busch InBev, I think every company, and this might be something that, for those of you who think you're in a space that doesn't need this, I think you're mistaken, because there's tremendous opportunity in so many aspects of technology or business improvement, and ways that I didn't even imagine. So, for example, people will come to me and they'll say, that's great that you're doing, technology innovation. So what are you doing, like making beer a little bit better? Or I don't understand, why are you going to all these conferences and going around the world? And I'll say, actually, it's everything. It's our energy consumption, it's reducing water, it's reducing effluent, it's hitting sustainability goals, it's improving the speed and repair of our maintenance times, it's improving our packaging lines, our distribution, our logistics operations, our smart ops operations. It's where we're getting, for example, the malt or the glass, monitoring the data from the glass supply that we receive, or the cans or the crowns. It goes so far beyond anything I ever thought when I walked into this job. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface on what we're capable of doing. I mean, there's even optimization opportunities in the temperature in the brewery or in the office buildings where a lot of people are working in the company. So one of our top partners, especially in artificial intelligence, Google, one of their most successful use cases was just cooling their data centers. So it's really fascinating to think what opportunities there are, and I think everyone needs to have an open mind. So I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about Industry 4.0. I would assume everyone here knows what that is by now, but just to kind of walk you through this process, it started with Industrial Revolution, right? You're moving up to assembly lines and mass production. Then you had this 3.0 stage where things are getting automated and you're using electricians and electrical stuff. And then now we're here, where we're trying to get connectivity on all of these things. So smart technologies, AI, big data, cloud computing, all of these different areas. But 5.0 is also just around the corner. And I was talking with somebody here yesterday about Japan's Society 5.0, which may just be a posturing thing, but technically it's already here, at least according to one country in the world. So 5.0 is just around the corner. And when I think of that world, it's honestly very exhilarating and also very terrifying because it's hard to imagine what life is going to be like. Something that comes to mind is, I don't know, have any of you gone to, remember in Disney World they had that ride, the Carousel of Progress? I don't know if any of you have been on that. I was one of those lucky kids who grew up in Florida, so we got to go to Disney World a lot. So we used to go over to that ride, and I liked it as a kid, and they'd have the song, and I remember they'd always say, now life is so amazing, it only takes 5 hours to do the laundry instead of 8 or whatever it was, hanging things out there. Well, now, going with that analogy, I feel like we've been plunged into this relentless washing machine of progress right now, and we can't get out. So there's no hitting the stop button. So we either have to go with it or find some way to coexist in this world. And I think the best way to do that is to be at the forefront, learn as much as you can, and just educate yourself. So as you can see, there are some issues, right? And these are the opportunities at the same time. So sustainability, I mentioned before. That's a huge goal for us at AB InBev. I'm not so sure that was a goal for a lot of big companies a few years ago. Some of it's for, obviously, the narrative of doing more for the world. Some of it is also about cost, reducing energy, being more efficient. But I think there's a general understanding now that companies need to do more to be eco-friendly. Society wants it. It's good for the world, and something that we definitely take seriously. And we have at Anheuser-Busch InBev a specific goal for 2025 that is extremely rigorous. And every year we're chipping away, hoping to get to that target by that year. And that's where our team comes in a lot of cases. Increasing global competition, changing labor markets. Everything is just faster right now. AI and disruptive technology, that's moving so quickly. I think 2-3 years ago, if you mentioned AI, people thought it was almost pie in the sky. Like it's this thing that, yeah, it's the robots are going to overtake us or something. But they didn't really understand how useful it could be as a process. We're already now doing about 5 AI projects just within our own program. And that has probably been our most successful suite of projects just because the optimization opportunities. So you see here, I talked about the rate of progress on the S&P, how long it took a company to get to into the S&P 500. So we're moving really quickly, and that number is only going to get less. So I'm thinking maybe somebody here gets inspired by this presentation, has an idea, and you'll be in the S&P at about 4 p.m. So digital transformation efforts are failing. And of course, people say you need to fail sometimes to learn how to succeed. And I think that's all true. But I'd also say if you can avoid that failure would be a nice thing as well. And learn from other people's failures, right? This list of companies, here are some who have not failed. We're not going to target ones who have. But here's some ones that have not failed, who have set the roadmap. And I'll say this, it's very, very hard. And there's tremendous growing pains, especially we're a huge company, right? And for those of you who don't know, we have a truly global footprint. We're in every continent except Antarctica, and we even brew a beer called Antarctica, so theoretically we're in every continent. And so, as you can imagine, getting all of these different groups and zones aligned on one thing is very hard. Lots of different systems, companies that weren't connected before that suddenly are. And these are the kind of pitfalls that you're facing, that if you don't figure out a way to get this entire organization on board, you're not going to succeed. And sometimes it's as far as, honestly, putting out estimates for this is the benefit you're going to get from a project when you really don't know that, but you go to every length possible to find out what that might be, just to get that buy-in from the right person who can move things along. So you really need top-down support and you need bottom-up interest. And getting both at the same time is really difficult. But we're going to talk in this presentation about some things you can do to try to succeed. So it's really 2 areas that we focused on at Anheuser-Busch. One of them is obviously technology-led digital transformation. And I think that's fairly obvious, right? What are the tech things we can look into? Where I think people tend to underestimate the importance is the capability-driven side. And what I mean by that is process excellence, business problems, and unmet needs. And one of the challenges I have is, we're the Global Tech Exploration Program, right? So I'm leading this group, and of course I want to do all these amazing projects. But I'm going to my global director of maintenance or packaging, and they're telling me, I don't care about that stuff. I have this problem that's keeping me up at night. Why should I give a damn about artificial intelligence? And it's a valid complaint because they're scrambling and they're trying to figure out how to do that. So some of it is a little bit of give and take, right? You have to give a little bit of candy to give the broccoli at the same time, as we say. So find a way to develop that relationship, build trust, show them that innovation isn't a waste of time. And I think what you'll actually find is the more companies become invested and interested in innovation, the more these stakeholders are going to be coerced to get on board. Because we've reached a point now where this group of, say, these functional directors that I'm working with, they've run out of ideas, honestly. The well is running dry in terms of new things with everything that they know to hit these extremely aggressive targets that they have to hit. So whereas a couple of years ago, they might have come to our group and said, okay, we'll entertain listening to you, but we've got bigger things to worry about. Now, we're kind of their only hope. So at that point, you have to be ready to say, we understand that, and guess what? Here's a great model and strategy we've put together, and here's how we can help you. And that's where being prepared, obviously, and coming to events like this, knowing what you're doing is the key for that. So I'll go through this slide quickly, but there's a lot of opportunity in eliminating digital waste. And that's obviously easy to say up here, a lot more difficult to do in real life. We've had a lot of struggles, for example, setting up our data system, a data lake that we're trying to use globally for the whole company. All kinds of conflicts, extra costs, security requirements. Sometimes I just wish that side of it didn't exist. Let's just innovate and we'll worry about it later, but you can't do that because ultimately you're going to run into roadblocks. So you have to find ways to show people that, yes, there's a gap, we can get there, but it's going to take a lot of hard work first to reach that point. So as you can see here, we conned the Wall Street Journal into thinking we were actually doing something. No, in reality, we are doing a lot of stuff at AB InBev. I think that's why we were invited to speak here. I mentioned it was an award-winning program. One of our AI projects won a prestigious award. And AB InBev's key stakeholders have embraced this whole innovative journey and stressed to the whole business that this is the future and this is what we're prioritizing, which is obviously great for me, but also for our potential opportunities. So a couple of things here. This is our program. I don't know if you can see on my shirt. I'm not really just trying to mimic Steve Jobs. It's actually just comes in black. But it's Tech Supply is the name of our group. And we're almost like a small company within a big company. And that's helped us a lot. I feel like an entrepreneur sometimes, trying to sell our vision to our internal stakeholders. But what we've done is we focused on, I'm sure you're familiar with lean, efficiency and Six Sigma and all the rest of that stuff. But we also did this thing called, I mentioned capabilities, we built this thing called the capability model. And what that is, we basically went through the entire business, talked to everybody imaginable, figured out what are the problems you have, what are the future opportunities that could exist. We did benchmarking visits like events like this one and others, talked to other companies, basically try to figure out what is going on that could happen that we could be taking part in. And then we put together a massive leviathan of a spreadsheet, which got so cumbersome that we had to turn it into a web platform. And it basically shows all of our costs, all of our benefits, and it's evolving and living document, of course. But whereas at first some were skeptical about whether something like this could work, it's the first thing I have to say that really seemed to resonate universally with the business. Of course, they challenged us and said, why do you think you're going to save people costs here on something that I don't know what that is? But the fact is, at least they had something tangible in front of them. So I don't know that I would have thought it would have worked so well, but it really has. Delivery platform. And I'm going to talk about these platforms here. You see on the bottom right corner. So Tech Supply is actually 4 platforms plus a 5th one. The fifth one is mine, the Tech Exploration Program, which funnels into all of these four. So we said it's not just enough to run pilots. And there's a phrase I used yesterday. It was called pilot purgatory. Some people seem to like it, so I think we'll stay stuck there on that term. So pilot purgatory is doing great pilots. Everyone likes them. The site that you choose is excited. So let's say we ran a project where I'm based at the Newark Brewery in New Jersey, which is our incubation headquarters outside the New York City office. They love it there, nice results. Now what? That's the hard part, is how do you scale that not only to other sites in, say, the North America zone with the United States team, but make that translatable to our new greenfield in Putian, China, which, believe me, there's a lot of differences between Newark and Putian, having been to both places. And it's not just language, it's systems, it's all kinds of things. So you have to find a way to do that, and what we did is we made these four platforms. So you have, almost think of it like a house. You have as a foundation connected brewery, and that's all about data collection. So it's my colleague, his name's Charles Tisdale, runs that program, and what he does is he's gone from site to site and figured out how can we get some universal historian and data collection system with proper security that can all feed into one global case. And that actually makes a big difference, not just for that particular implementation, but our entire future. Because for me, the next pilot that I want to run, if I'm able to get that data through Charles's system instead of having to beg, pander, and steal from some zone IT group to please give me the data I need for this project, now I don't even have to talk to those people. We can just go straight, pull the data, nobody there even is involved, and we can do so much more with that opportunity. You have this managed brewery. That's basically filling the layer between our SAP systems and the data collection. And it's execution really throughout the board. So if you've heard of MES, I think some of you may know about that. That's a big part of that. PTS, product technical specifications, anything really to do with supplier management. So for example, glass supplier imports. We get some of our glass is internal, but a lot comes from other suppliers. A project that I'm working on right now, this is an example, not as sexy as artificial intelligence per se, but very important. How can we manage these glass suppliers, monitor their performance better, and avoid potential disasters like a recall, which can happen, unfortunately, if you don't have proper traceability in place. So you need a lot of these building blocks sometimes to do the really cool, exciting stuff, and you can't skip those steps. Mobile Brewery is trying to introduce a suite of not only mobile apps, but just really digitizing a lot of our processes. So example would be for maintenance, we have an app, a maintenance app essentially, that anyone who works in maintenance in the company, it's being rolled out to all the zones now, has a tablet, they're able to respond with each other, and it creates a lot more efficiency. Things like Interaction Log, a tool for creating meetings more efficiently that we have, which is based on benchmarking with other companies as well. A subject matter expert tool, which allows you to find who is this person who I can ask this one question I need to about why this valve won't turn properly. You can integrate other people in the company and use video chat and connectivity to call someone in Europe, let's say while you're in a brewery in Mexico City, and actually get that answer, not have to spend 2 days trying to figure out who the right person is to ask that question. So these are really amazing tools. We have an app called Sensory app, which is to guide beer tasters, not only to help them record the results so that the beer is fresher and better, but also as a resource to make sure they're following the proper protocols so that the very stringent standards are met for the taste quality. And then finally, you see the smart brewery piece. That's the part that is the future. And that's where all of this is leading to. So you've got your data collection system through Connected. you have the digitizing in mobile, you have the managing and execution through manage, but all of that's leading to these insights going to this big central data lake location where we can now do all kinds of extraordinary AI projects, big data projects, anything really that's all in one place. Another strategy we're doing there is something called the NOC, a network of capability centers, trying to centralize to reduce people costs, among other things, by using cameras and more advanced technologies. So when we talked about 5.0 earlier, I think it's so transformational. The biggest example I could give would be, imagine going to the Lux 5.0 summit. You may not all even be sitting in this room. For all we know, you're on VR headsets connected on some telepathic frequency that we could never even understand. So a little bit scary when you think about it, but also would save you a hotel cost and a flight trip. So maybe there's some benefit. And more specifically about the strategy itself, we divided all of the capability model items into 3 categories. Make sure I'm doing it on time. We've got foundation, integrated, and optimizing. And the fragmented is what it was before we started. So yes, these are some fancy words. I personally was a huge Isaac Asimov fan and loved the Foundation series, so I don't mind seeing the word, but essentially what it is, you have to have some kind of common layer throughout the whole company. And you can't do the integrated and optimizing stuff until you have that. So the idea being, first, take a couple years, get everybody on the same system, give yourself a chance so that when you introduce some new innovative project, it can actually layer on top of that everywhere, not just in 10 sites or in one continent, or zone as we call it. Integrated is that next step, and that's where the tech exploration program comes in. We're trying to find ways to not only just have that layer, but things that are doing a little bit more advanced stuff. So this would be some of the early artificial intelligence projects, early things with big data, advanced process control. I'll talk about that in a later slide. Anything really in this space that gives us a chance to optimize. But when you hit the optimizing layer, that's the future. That's where you don't even need humans at the controls to do these things. So imagine autonomous forklifts or autonomous data decision making. Imagine that there's no human being even involved in deciding that this piece of equipment needs to be replaced. The order comes in, it repairs itself perhaps, and now you've completed one of our KPIs, MTTR, mean time to repair. You've done that without a single person even knowing about it practically. That's the level that we want to get to. And I think what seemed fairly impossible actually feels very realistic right now, just because of you see the way things are going. And I'm sure you've all heard stuff yesterday and today that led you to believe what I'm saying. So question we often have to ask ourselves is, do we know if we're consistently doing the right things the right way? And this is often a painful, difficult question to ask yourself, because you don't want to waste time and you don't want to waste what limited money you get for innovation on doing the wrong thing. It needs to be aligned to a strategy. Sometimes it's even frustrating for a site. Imagine if you were a brewery in China, let's say. You've actually been running a good system. It's going great. Everybody likes it. Now global comes in and they're telling you, actually, we have a system that's basically as good. It's the global solution, and now you have to switch all of your systems to that one. You're going to get pushback on that. But if you allow that zone and that brewery to keep doing things their own way, they're going to miss out later. So you have to find some compromise and always ask yourself, are we doing the right thing? So this was before, right? You have outdated manual checklists, wealth of knowledge and aging workforce, confusing and disconnected tools, poor visibility of task assignments. KPIs, that's a big one, at least for us. I don't think I can get through a 30-minute call without the word KPI coming up at least 7 times. Manual, inefficient, and require work. this is the stuff that we're trying to improve. So internal processes, now we can capture shop floor knowledge globally, real-time monitoring, a universal system, like I was saying, that's consistent. One-click end-to-end product and quality traceability, that's an amazing thing. Some people call it connected packaging. Some people will call it, this is where something like blockchain can come in, right? You have, of course, you need the whole world to get on board with this. It's one thing to internally say, we want to do a blockchain project, but how do you get your suppliers to buy into the fact that doing smart contracts through a ledger is actually good for them? These are the kinds of challenges you face, but if you hit that point and you can get that traceability all the way through, the second you see something that, say there was a bad batch of beer, you could figure out what happened, why, and immediately have those data insights to figure out what happened, who's the culprit, although you don't like to think of it that way, but where is the reconciliation owed, and what can we do better to improve what happened in this one bottleneck step to make it more efficient. So I mentioned the managed brewery. I'll just go through this quickly. This is an example of how all of these things are tied into one system and being operated efficiently. The part that I think impresses me is automatic notifications when things go wrong or understanding, and it ties into that traceability piece I was saying. If you can have that level of response from an automated system, it just frees you up to focus on so many other things that are more important in the business, and you're not being stuck having people on your team logging paperwork for 2 hours to report a problem or to even identify what the problem is. You can see here, Smart Brewery, I talked about all of those screens somehow produce Bud Light. I'm not sure how. No, but the reality is that inferences and data that you would have never thought could tell you that something's needed. In this case, let's say it was market forecasting. And we're not quite there yet. I talked about integrating. We're supply chain. My dream is that our group in supply chain is actually working directly with sales, marketing, other parts of the company. Imagine if we actually could predict with extreme accuracy that in July there's going to be an influx of Bud Light that's needed because of some market indicator that no one could have imagined. That can tell us automatically to go into our breweries and change our management process so that Bud Light gets made a little bit more 6 weeks before. Instead of getting some emergency requests that cost money because we have to shut the lines down, switch to Bud Light from Rolling Rock or whatever it is we're making, which wasn't as much needed in the market. So this is the kind of insights that affects us, and I think it is very possible. Connected brewery. I don't know how many of you are familiar with advanced process control. This is a project that I'm very passionate about, and it's fairly accepted, I think, in the industry. The idea is you have already machines on the equipment level that are functioning at a pretty high level. So it's not like, and actually, let me pause and make a point about this. Something that I had to learn when I walked into the breweries for the first time and said, I'm the tech exploration lead and I'm going to save the day, they weren't looking for a white knight to do this. You have to almost accept that the people working on the floor are very intelligent, industrious people in their own right. If there's something they could have done, they've probably already tried it or given it a shot, and the equipment that exists is pretty good already. So you actually have to be exceptional to give them something that's meaningful to them. And in this case, what advanced process control does is it's a real-time adjustment of the equipment. So it's not just to say, every time the temperature, say there's a boiler or something like that, every time the temperature reaches a certain point, we should alter this. That's already happening. What advanced process control is doing is taking many other insights, putting it through a machine learning engine immediately, and then figuring out, oh, we should actually tweak this very slightly in smaller increments to be a little bit more efficient and optimizing. And it's especially valuable in the energy and water and wastewater treatment space, where you can, for example, a project I'm working on right now is a reverse osmosis project in our LA brewery. Can we smooth out the process in which bad microbes are pumped out from the LA water system. It's already pretty efficient, so the bar is high, but we think artificial intelligence can get us even more efficient. So finally, I'll close with the 5 principles to success. And you can have your own principles. As long as you have some principles, I think that's all that really matters. But these 5 principles that at least we're living by in tech supply and have held us well. So you see the vision, strategy, and execution. I would say vision is fun. Easy is not the right word, but we all have dreams and can imagine the future. Strategy is painstaking, difficult. Sometimes I feel like I'm with a room full of consultants instead of beer-making people. But it's honestly important to have a roadmap and a digital understanding. Execution is almost impossible. That's the hardest part. And I think that's where we mentioned pilot purgatory. That's where people get off the wagon. They're great on strategy. They've got a great roadmap. Everybody's on board. You've benchmarked. Now it's time to deliver. How are you actually going to do that? And that's when you get called on, all the promises you've made for years. At some point, you have to start showing results. And a lot of companies and groups, they're not able to do that. And like I said, it's because it's so difficult. Second thing is be obsessed with solving relevant problems. And that's what I was saying about listen to the people in the business. So something I did, I was telling somebody yesterday, is we created I just created a URL that everyone could understand that was easy to remember. I sent it to the whole company. Said, look, I don't care if you're the most junior operator or the chief supply officer or whoever you are, you might have something worth contributing. It's going to be funneled into a set of standards we're going to review. We're going to vet it vigorously. We're going to have a vote with the zones. We're going to get a sponsor on the functional director level. And we're going to make sure that by the time we actually start this pilot, it has been vetted so rigorously that there's no way anyone could question why we're doing this project. And that gives me headaches, and I have trouble sleeping over it, but it saves me a lot of trouble later. Executive sponsorship. This is, not easy because you need to have people on the VP or chief executive C level who understand the importance of digital innovation. And a lot of those people, it's a mixed bag, I think you'll find at companies. There are some very forward-thinking people. There are some who probably came from a different time or different mechanical processes. You have to chip away. And I'm excited to say that even some of our more fervent detractors have slowly come around at AB InBev. And the key, what's interesting about a lot of those people is sometimes the ones who are stubborn and hardest to win on your side, once you get them, they become your best allies. Because now their opinion is considered of great weight, and they wield a pretty powerful hammer. And so they're basically imagine you're an operator, and your schedule already, because of cuts and trying to optimize your people performance, you're doing almost 1.5 jobs as one person right now. And someone's coming to you and saying, in addition to that, we'd like you to try this innovation initiative. And by the way, there's no overtime and no extra pay. It's just because it's a great project. How are you going to get someone excited to do that? Well, one way is inspiring them and picking the right people who really want to do it. Another way is having a VP say, you have to do it. And sometimes that's the necessary step to get everybody on board so that you can have success with those projects. Stay calibrated to the truth. And you see data as in a magnifying glass. That's not by accident. Data doesn't lie. That's the thing you have to tell yourself. When you see, assuming the data is accurate, of course, but the data is correct, you may not like what you see sometimes, but unfortunately, statistics are telling you the truth, and you cannot ignore what it's saying. And at the same time, you can't ignore detractors in your company who may actually have valid points about something you're doing wrong, and you might have to tweak the model. And then finally, personal transformation. And this is something that, and it's why I wear this tech supply logo with pride. It's because we've kind of taken our purpose a little beyond just transforming our company. Our group, we're a very special, unique, and tight-knit collective of people. And we go out of our way to not only focus on how we can help the company, but how can we improve ourselves. And that's where I think trying to do things that provide purpose and impact can also translate into success in the workplace. So I'd say don't neglect yourself and don't forget why we're here on this earth. It's not just to make AB InBev more money or save them some energy usage. It's also to find personal fulfillment and value in our short lifespans, which maybe the singularity will prolong, but we can't count on that just yet. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And feel free to come up to me and ask any questions about AB InBev, what we're doing, and how you can lead your digital transformation at your company.